That's
So,
funny. Well, I looked up, so you might take my camera off. I'm that kid
oh
during prayer
no,
time.
you're good. You're good. You're good. That's awesome.
You're listening to Hyperlink, a podcast journey. Before we open our Bibles to Blessed Are Those Who Mourn, we are sitting with someone who lived it. Join Nigel with special guest JoBeth Polley, a widow, adoptive mother, and grief recovering specialist, as she shares how God met her in the darkest valley and led her forward. This is Comfort in the Chaos.
Hey everybody, I'm so excited today to have a special guest with us, JoBeth, and she has an incredible story. I can't wait to let you listeners hear this story and how this really connects back to everything we're going to be talking about here coming up in some following episodes. So, JoBeth, why don't you go ahead and tell people who you are, and kind of maybe even how we met if you'd like. And then we'll go into your origin story. How's that sound?
Yeah, sounds good. So, first of all, thanks for finding my story interesting and valuable enough to share with your audience. I do appreciate that. But yeah, I posted my story online, and you'd reached out, and you thought that this would be of something that was valuable to your listeners. But my name is JoBeth, and I'm a grief recovery specialist, and I definitely have not done this my whole life. I started out in education. And I started out in education because I wanted to help people, but I didn't know what to do, so I went into teaching because that was going to be the best way to get in front of people that needed help. And so I did that for a few years. Quickly after that, my husband and I experienced infertility, and that's kind of where I experienced grief for the first time, like deep grief. And then we ended up adopting, which was a beautiful story and a beautiful solution to this wanting to be a family. And things were really wonderful and complete, and just complete's just the best word. Everything was whole. It felt like there was nothing else left to do. And we bought a farm. We were just built our dream home. Our kids were good. We were homeschooling, and my husband got really sick. And we took him to the doctor. They diagnosed him with terminal brain cancer, and he died a year later. And
Wow.
so we went from this life of it being like this perfect, beautiful, everything seemed great life to like, I don't even know what life is anymore. I don't know. Like, it's just like, it went from being like such a beautiful future and all these hopes and dreams and how we were going to do things to like, I don't even know, like, just, I don't know what life is. Like, I don't even know where we go from here. And I knew early on when I found out that I was going to be widowed at a young age, that if I could figure out how to help other people through this, that I would. If I could first get through it, that I would help other people through it. Because I wasn't really sure how you were supposed to survive it, but I knew it was possible. And I just wanted to figure out how. And so that's what I did. And that's what led me to doing the work that I do today, where I help pull people out of the deep, dark pits of grief and show them that there is light and there is hope and there is a future, even though you can't see it. And so I'm thankful to be here today. Anytime I get the opportunity, I always just want to speak hope and life over people, because there was a long period of time where I didn't desire to live anymore. And I needed those people speaking that over me. And so I always hope to do that when I get the opportunity. So thank you for giving me this opportunity today. And I'm excited to dive into some like biblical truths around suffering and death and what this means to us as Christians.
Thank you so much for sharing. When I read your story online, it captivated me. It was a short little post, if you will, and it was captivating because for me, I have been in the church. I grew up in the church. My mom got saved when I was 10, so I can't say I was born in the church, but I've been going to church since I was 10 years old. Really involved by the time I was in youth group. Really very, very much involved. Went to Bible college, became a youth pastor, all these things. I grew up basically, I lived in the church. My whole world was basically the church. And I never hear people talk well about grief as an adult, as someone now who's experienced some loss. it's not something I believe the American church does well. When I read in the Bible about people who grieve, sometimes I see it done well, sometimes I don't. Yet it's just not something that we talk about. I don't think it's focused on enough, and it really we're that that American mindset in American at least was that we push through, we get over it, we overcome anything, and we're not always taught how to. We're just told we're supposed to,
Right.
and that can be detrimental, right? And you mentioned, I didn't even know that the infertility part, and that itself is something that a lot of people deal with, is grieving that loss. And so, man, thank you again. I'm so excited for this conversation. Before we really get into the meat of the conversation, I do want to ask you my favorite question to ask my interview guests. And now that you've shared your origin story, is what is your favorite biblical hyperlink? As a podcast, what we do, we think everything in life connects back to the Bible. If you could click on it, you could hyperlink it back to the Bible. And then we believe that everything in the Bible actually hyperlinks back to Genesis somewhere. And this is called Hyperlink, a podcast journey, for a reason, because it's part of our journey is to find all those hyperlinks. And I don't have all of them by any means, and I'm always curious to see if my guests have something I've never seen, or just something I've seen and we're both passionate about. That's exciting either way.
Yeah. So, as you know, this question like kind of baffled me a little bit.
Yeah.
And I thought about it like a lot, and like, how does this, like, how does this all connect and how does this go together? And I think the answer to this is really simple.
Always is.
Like, when did suffering begin? When did suffering occur in the Bible? Well, it occurred in Genesis. Like, immediately, that's when we first saw this remorse and this grief, and that's when when death is introduced. And we know that death is going to be part of the human experience. And so when I think about my story, we all know that we're all dying. We know that. It doesn't make it any easier, doesn't make us any more prepared for it, but it's something that we know is going to happen. And so death is introduced to us there. We know it's happening. But then later, when we get into Romans, we start understanding like the power of suffering in our relationship with God, like where those two connect. And so the connection is like this triangle of like, is this Romans and me? Like how this all comes together. And you will never hear me say that I'm thankful for the cards I've been dealt as far as not being able to have children and
That's
losing my
honest.
husband.
I love that.
Right. But can I take things from these experiences and be thankful that I found some goodness in it? Yeah. There is a closeness that we get to have with God when we are suffering that is unachievable any other way. Like you can't get there without deep suffering. And so my understanding of God before suffering was at one level. My understanding of God during and after suffering, completely different level. Like he's not the same person to me as he was before. And so can I look back on this experience and say, wow, that was really terrible. I hate that happened, but look what came from it. I don't see him the same way. And it's because in these moments of suffering, it turned me hardcore to his word. What does he tell us? And I'm looking at Romans 8. Romans 8 was a almost like a meditation. It was not like digging into it, and it wasn't like a theology project. It was almost like a meditation and understanding. But 8:18 says, "For I consider that the sufferings of this present time, which were horrible for me when I was leaning into this, are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us." Like, in reading that, like you understand the magnitude of your suffering in that moment. So if that is not even comparable to the glory, what is that? Like that I can't comprehend that. And so can you find comfort in God's word during these times of suffering, knowing that death came from Genesis. It's been here, it's never leaving.
Yeah.
Like, but then we were promised this, and that's really where I leaned into was this chapter of the Bible.
Romans 8 it's the heart of Romans. There's a book called Into the Heart of Romans. I do recommend it. I'll probably put it in the show notes for those who listen. It's by N.T. Wright, and it changed a lot of how I looked at Romans. But Romans is really like Romans 8 is literally the middle of Romans. I mean, we have Romans 1 through 16, like 8 is the middle, and it has so much richness in there, but it connects all of Romans together. It's amazing. So I'm always, I know a lot of people haven't read that book, but I'm always amazed when people gravitate toward Romans 8 after I read that book, because it's like this is such a pivotal passage in Romans, and so it's so good. 8:28, right? Like he works all things together. Like you read 8:19 or 18, I believe.
18.
18, and then just 10 verses later, he works all things together for good of those who love him and are called by his name. And that is it's hard to wrap our minds around, for sure. It is, because there are times real evil happens. There's times real tragedy happens in our lives, and it's tough. It's just it's exceptionally tough.
And I think we have the opportunity, and you and I previously talked about this before, but I think as Christians, we give ourselves more choices than we should. And I think when tragedy happens, we think we have the option to turn away from God. And I knew early on, like, I was going to lose my husband. I didn't want to lose God too. And for that reason, I wanted to lean in and lean in hard. And reading like 28, like all things work together for the good of those who love him. Can I look at this situation where I've lost my husband, or maybe people who are listening, they've lost a child, like, or they're going through divorce or something. There's something like that's just totally wrecking them. Can they lean into knowing and understanding that, not understanding, because we can't understand, especially when we're in deep grief, but that all things work together for the good? Like, can you get there? Probably not, but like, we know God, we know he's a promise keeper.
Amen.
Can we lean into that and find comfort in that? And the answer is yes. And I don't think we should give ourselves a choice to lean in or not to lean in. Like the answer is you lean in. You can lean in angry. You can lean in mad. You can lean in sad. You can lean in reluctantly, but lean in, because like it's all we got.
That's so profound, Beth. That is so profound, because people they decide, they think the choice is theirs. From the beginning, the choice was, I mean, you talked about Genesis, the choice was theirs. When you look at life from a larger, or like a 30,000 foot view, you realize like there's no choice. I mean, to make it a little more jovial, this is what I do. So when we talk about heavy things, I always bring a little joke. It's just part of who I am and how I help people, hopefully. Is to make it a little bit more jovial, is for me, there's no choice. Like pineapples don't belong on pizza. It's okay. It's not a choice. Like, it's not even a choice at this point. And I say that because for me, and what you said, there's no choice. I'm not losing God. There's no choice here. There is an illusion of choice, but I'm not going to lose. I'm not going to, why would that door is not a door I'm ever going to walk through. So there's no choice, really. Just, I'm never going to eat pineapples on pizza again. Fine. And so I love that. That is such an interesting place to be. It reminds me of the Sermon on the Mount, right? And the Beatitudes. And I actually, in our podcast, we're going through that currently. So I was excited to actually, this is so great how the Lord works. He brings things in at the right time and makes things work together so well. He's like a beautiful tapestry that we can't see, but I meet you. We're recording this in the middle of me recording our Sermon on the Mount series, and I'm looking at my outline, and I'm thinking this is going to go perfect right before the Beatitudes, because the second Beatitude is blessed are those who mourn. For those that are listening to this one before, we haven't even talked about blessed yet. Blessed, that word blessed doesn't mean God blesses you. Like, it's different. It means when I look at someone's life and I say, man, that's the life I want. That's what that means. It's a different type of word. It's not the word that would be traditionally used for God is blessing me or God bless that person. It's actually the word that would say, man, look at that. They have 20 acres and they have cows. I want that. That's a good life. That's a great life. And Jesus is saying the dream life is for those who mourn. What are we talking about? Jesus doesn't make the dream life for those who are poor in spirit. I can only imagine how low in spirit you felt that year, right? That whole year until the end. I can only imagine. But it says, like, I have it open. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. And you said something else that was so profound, because you said you have a new experience of God that you had a new revelation, if you will, understanding of God you would not have been able to have without going through what you went through. And that's a place that a lot of people run away from. They don't want a new revelation. They want God to stay the same. And he is the same, but they don't want to learn something new because they like their life oftentimes. But in the hard moments, I mean, is when you see a revelation of God you have never seen before. If you allow him to speak to you and to comfort you, to literally says they will be comforted. You will be comforted and that's an aspect of God that, you know, we can hold on to, but we have to go through something in order to hold on to that.
Right.
You don't need to be comforted if life's great.
Right. Yeah. I think it's one of the most beautiful opportunities. I mean, like I said, like it is what it is. You have this situation, this circumstance where you cannot change it, right? Because if we could, we would have. You also get the opportunity, because when something bad happens, you have prayed against that, right? So we were praying for my husband's healing here on earth.
Amen.
We were praying for a baby. Like lots of people were praying. And the answer was no. No, you're not going to have children physically, and no, your husband's not going to live. And you know, how do you turn back to God and stay there with him when he keeps telling you no for maybe the two most important things in your life? And it all comes down to just making a decision and saying, I know. And that was my prayer. Like, wasn't even a prayer. It was just a commitment every day, was like, God, like, keep him or take him. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. And I know this is going to be hard. I don't know what emotions are coming, but I'm not going anywhere. And then after he passed, there was a long period of time of not being able to pray. Like, I don't know. I didn't know what to say. Like what do I say to you? I asked you for something, you told me no, and now I'm here with all these broken pieces, and I don't know what to say to you, but I'm not going anywhere. And a lot of days after he passed, my prayer was like, hey, like, that's all it was. I don't know what to say. Like, it was just, hey, I'm here.
The Jewish culture has this custom when people grieve, when people have a death, and they call it sitting Shiva, I think is the phrase they use, right? And really, you don't say anything. You just are there with them. And it's like, I think they have a custom of a certain amount of days. I'm not an expert. Where you just are there physically. You're not like, I'm praying for you, bro.
Right.
Hey, I got you, girl. You're in my prayers this morning. And it's like, it's not a thumbs up or a praying for you emoji. That it's really just, you're there in the moment. And you don't have to say anything. And if they want to yell, if they want to scream, if they want to cry, you're there. If they want to sit silently and just stare at the wall, you're there. If they want to open up, you're there. And that is, I love that you said that. You didn't pray. You didn't know what to pray. In my mind, that is still prayer. Because prayer is communing with God. So much, what do we always say? Talking is only like 40% of communication or something like that. I'm not like I think you're a communications major. You know these things.
Do not ask me communication stats.
But talking is only a portion. I'll say a portion because I don't have the statistics off the top of my head. Is a portion of communication. So much, there's more in tone, and then there's more in nonverbal communication. That is a thing. And you can commune with God nonverbally. So, like, people, you can do that. You can just sit and be like, hey, I'm here, you're here. And that's all.
Yeah.
And that's that's a beautiful place. It's a tough place for the moment that you were in, but it can be a beautiful place even if you're in the best season of your life. Hey, God, I'm here, you're here. It's been great. And you don't have to say anything else, and you just commune. Yeah. It's both ways. So, wow, that's profound. Tell me, you mentioned you want to help people, you want to bring hope, you want to bring light. And how do you do that? How do you help people grieve well? Is the phrase I like to say. Like, how do you help people grieve well? And what path or what road or what Bible verses, what things are you using? What tools are you using that is actually getting people to commit to God in the midst of their grief and to learn how to get comforted, if you will, by God, to use the biblical language?
Okay, so this is hard and this is tricky. And as a pastor, you know this because you've seen it. But a lot of times people turn away from God when bad things happen. We talked about that just
I have
briefly.
countless stories. Countless
Yeah,
stories.
like somebody dies, the people left behind don't come back to church. It's too painful. So walking back into church after a loss is one of the more painful things, especially if it was a partner or a child or somebody you went to church with. And so that's
Yeah.
really hard. So people stop coming, and that's not good. They walk away from their support system, the people that are checking on them, praying for them. Like it's not good.
My church says we're a spiritual family. Like you can't walk away from your family when you need them the most.
But people do.
All the time. All the time.
So what I've found in my work is that people are angry with God. And so when I sit down with them, they're really upset, right? This person has passed away, or this diagnosis has taken their life, basically. Their at least their livelihood. And, we don't talk about God. We don't start there. And the reason we don't start there is when you sit down with somebody who's grieving and you want to jump into God and they're angry at God, you've lost them. And so I let God come up organically. I really do believe that the Holy Spirit intercedes there, is there kind of in that person's heart, like, okay, like, where am I? Where am I? Where am I? They will bring it up almost 100% of the time. They bring it up. And it's because, like, they're like, yeah, they're devastated. Like, let's just say their partner died. They're really upset. And so we get into the work. And I'm really upset that he died, but he didn't choose to leave. We had a great marriage, blah, blah, blah. And then, but at the core of the pain is, why did God do this to me? That is the core. And so then we get into that. And what I do is help people communicate. So in this situation, if it was where they were angry at God, help them communicate with God in a way that helps them to move forward in their relationship.
Yeah.
So what that would sound like is understanding, I think it's important that we understand scripture and understand that death is just part of life. And also understanding that we don't have the reasons to why people die young. Or we don't know. And it's not in scripture of like, okay, if this person died, go to, 1 Corinthians and Paul's going to tell us exactly why your person died. Like that's not a thing, right? And so we can't really turn to scripture for answers, but we know that we know God, we know his character, we know God is good, and we know all things work together for his goodness. So if we can know that and just leave it there and be like, we have to learn to accept that this is just part of life.
Yeah, you hit something so true again. I like to ask the question why a lot. Like not why God, why, but how come, I would maybe use how come, why sounds so like adversarial. But how come you didn't just give us all the answers in the Bible, God? And if he gave us all the answers, we wouldn't need to pursue him.
Right, where would faith be?
Where would faith be if he gave us all the exact answers? And there's a beauty in the pursuit. I mean, when you're pursuing a relationship with someone that you want to marry, or you're still married, you're married and you want to continue to pursue that relationship, there's a beauty in just getting to know and grow. And like, what, I don't need all the answers. I just like the life together is what I want. And so I think there's a little bit of that there. You also mentioned, Paul didn't give us the answers, which I love that because it's, how do I say this correctly? Without all the answers, if we can lean into God, that is how we know we trust him. My pastor says this all the time. He says, you really can't trust God when things are good because you don't have to. Like, you don't know how much you trust God when things are good. But when things are bad is when you find out how much you trust God. And you won't, and the answers aren't. Even if there was the answers, no one would like them. If God was like, I just did it because I wanted to, and that was the answer, you wouldn't like it. If God was like, I did it because it was better for them, you wouldn't like it. There's no answer you're gonna like when you're in the middle of grief from God about why this happened. There's no answer. There's literally none.
Right.
And so, man, but then you have the other people, right, who they lean into God, or they never even thought about being mad at God. My grandmother, it's a story, really personal at least. My aunt died when I was 11 or 12. So she died young. And it was hard on the whole family. My family's really close-knit family. We would get together every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, the whole family, like cousins, uncles, everybody. We had 30, 40 people. Now it's like 60 people, sometimes 50 people deep at my grandma's house because there's multiple grandchildren. It's fantastic. But when my aunt died, a couple years later, or it was like decades later. My mom, who is a strong believer, asked my grandmother one time, because she was taking a class at a church and they were talking about being mad at God. And my mom was like, why would I ever be mad at God? Like, he saved my life. What could he have possibly done to make me mad at him? So she didn't understand that. And the people were talking about their journeys, and a lot of it had to do with grief and losing people, being mad at God. And my mom had lost someone, but she never thought about being mad at God. So she asked my grandmother the same question. Were you mad at God when Connie died? And my grandmother was like, no. Why would I be mad at God? And you have two options. Why would you be mad at God? I just love that answer. And as I think the stories of our grandparents, of our parents, will help our faith, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't gone through a ton of grief in my life, praise Jesus, but it's bound to happen when it's going to hit hard, and I can look back at that story and say, why would I be mad at God about this?
Right.
You know?
Again, it's just, I think emotions are things that we all experience differently, right? And so, like,
Yes.
I also never went through any kind of anger. I was never mad. And I don't have an explanation for why, but it's an emotion that a lot of people go to. But I also think that, and this might offend some people, but I think a
I'm
lot
here
of
for it.
times, I think a lot of times when people are angry and they're stuck in anger, they're also stuck in victimhood. And we don't like that. Victimhood is not a virtue. Like, we need to step out of that. And I think that it's in that victimhood that we kind of just sit in anger. And I think it's fine to be angry at God. I think he can handle it. I think he's big enough to handle it and understand it. It's kind of like, I always say, like, if I'm walking through the parking lot with my daughter and she's like 4 and she goes to run out in front of a car, I grab her and yank her back real quick. In that moment, she doesn't understand why, but I'm saving her life in that moment. She doesn't need to know why. And I don't care if she's mad at me about it. And I feel like God's the same way, that he's like, okay, I can handle the fact that you're angry. Like, you're going to get over it. But I think that we have a responsibility, as humans, like, even if you're not a Christian, which I'm certain everybody listening is, but even if you're not a Christian, we have a responsibility in our humanity to just not sit in anger and not sit in victimhood. It's not going to serve us in any way. It can also be detrimental to our faith if we choose to just be like, I'm a victim, and just sit in that. What is to gain from that? Nothing is the answer.
Yes, I could not agree more. Within our podcast, we talk a lot about the lack mindset versus the abundance mindset.
Mhm.
We've done it a lot. It happens so organically. Just reading the Bible, you're seeing it. And the victim mindset is this lack mindset. It's this idea that there's not enough. It's this idea that I have to take from someone to get more. It's this idea that someone who has more than me, or a better life than me, or who still has their husband, who still has their kids, who was able to have 5 kids, that's better than my life because God didn't allow me. Now I'm a victim. And that's a lack of mindset, which goes all the way back to Genesis. Because Eve had everything she needed. Adam had everything he needed. And then the serpent said, but you could be like God. And now it's like, oh, there's something I don't have that I could maybe get. And she desired the fruit. She saw that it was good. And to make her wise, to make her to see the difference of right and wrong, or the knowledge of good and evil, and whatever that meant to her mind. And, there's something else. There's something more. And that stems from being lack. And that victim mindset, I'm obviously not Caucasian, and I'm half black, half white. And so I think it really hits home in the African American community so much in America right now, specifically. And it's tough talking to people with a victim mindset for a long time, because they get angry at so many things, not just God. They sit in anger, they let anger fester, and it's literally like poison. Like, it's like me drinking. I heard a pastor say that anger is like me drinking poison and expecting you to die.
Mm-hmm.
Wait,
That's
what?
exactly what it is. Exactly.
And so you meet with people. You're a grief counselor. You're counseling, right? Counselor, is that the phrase?
A therapist, or I'm a specialist. A
grief specialist.
Yeah.
I know there's a specific word. You're a grief specialist. You meet with people, and you're helping walk them through this journey. It really is a journey of grieving. Do you ever like connect with their close family members to help them as well? Are there moments where there's a woman who's grieving infertility, and you're helping her husband help guide her as well because he's close, or things like that?
So it typically, like, the spouses will take their stuff home, and if they have a good solid marriage, they will discuss it with their partners and be like, okay, this is what I'm working through. A lot of times when I give them assignments, they will go home and do it and be like, is this accurate? Is this really how I'm experiencing? Like, are you seeing it the same way, or is there more that you're seeing that I'm unable to see because I'm in it? It would be helpful. A lot of times, though, and I think it goes back to, like, supporting people incorrectly who are grieving. People kind of like come to me and they're like, "Here she is, fix her." That's kind of like here, like, I don't know what to do, so can you help her, please?
It's like you're a pastor.
Yeah,
Fix this person.
you can
Fix my
fix them.
teen. They're crazy.
Right, and it doesn't work, right? Because there's so much. It kind of goes back to the mindset thing. If they're not in that mindset, you can't help them. That has to change first.
Yeah.
Which is something that I try to do, is to change the mindset. And that's something I was gonna say was, you're talking about, like, people who are like in the victim, and because God said no, He's closed the doors or whatever. I've always been a very confident person, and when we were unable to have kids, I went into like a silent retreat where there was a lady there that was a spiritual mentor. Anyway, so I was in silence for a full day, and because I was praying, and we weren't getting pregnant and didn't know what to do. And I was just, like, crying out to God, like, I don't know what to do. I don't know, like, what, like, are we supposed to try more? Are we supposed to adopt? And in crystal clear, it came to me that, I believe it was God, of course, said, there's a little girl that needs a mom more than you need to be a parent, or more than you need to have your own children. That was exact words. There's a little girl that needs you more than you need to have your own children. And it was kind of like one of those mic drop moments. So from there on, and then I have my little girl today. Like, I was going to show you a picture, but she's up there. I'm surprised she hasn't come in here yet, actually.
Hey, that's awesome.
But, like, from that moment forward, it's when there is this roadblock, there is this no, I'm confidently able to be like, oh, you got something more for me. You got something better for me. You're calling me to something higher, to something that you want, which is better than what I want. And so it prepared me for this moment with my late husband, that, like, I have proof that there is good that's going to come from this. And so I think if you're with us today, and you're in those trenches, like, and you're like, well, I have no proof that that something good's going to come from this. Like, we have the word, but as of today, you have me too, that's saying, like, there is good that comes from really bad things. And He's calling you to something that you don't know about. You don't know what it looks like. You don't know how to get there. Like, nothing, but you serve a God who does. And, like, you need to just leave it there and trust, obey, and move forward.
That's so good. Oh, that's so good. Trust, obey, move forward. It's like that needs to be on a t-shirt. Trust, obey, move forward. That needs to be on a t-shirt. That reminds me of Exodus. The children of Israel, they're, Pharaoh's army's behind them. The Red Sea's in front of them. And God tells them, He's like, okay, Moses, go forward. My version says that exact phrase, like, go forward. I'm sure some versions say something different, but it's like, you have to move now. It's parting. The trust is there. You have to trust, obey, and move forward. It's not like trust is as an action verb, if you will.
Yeah.
I know I don't know grammar very well, but it feels like it's an action word.
It feels like an action word.
It feels like an action word, whether it is grammatically or not. I'm sure it's a noun and an action. Active trust, but there's a trust that's very active, and that's the trust. And what's interesting is in Hebrew, there's no word for obey and listen is the same. And we kind of instinctively know that, especially as parents, right? Listen to me. That means obey me. Like, we say it all the time. Listen, just, you're not listening. Well, I heard you, Dad. Well, then why didn't you do it?
Right.
I'm confused. So it's listen and obey. And I find that fascinating that in Hebrew, there's the same word. So sometimes even when you're reading your Bible and it says they listened to God, it means they just obeyed God.
Yeah.
Or God says, listen, O Israel. Obey, O Israel, right? Like from the prophet's mouth. Listen, obey, O Israel. Like it could be either one, synonymous. So that's really interesting that you said that, listen, obey, and move forward. So hopefully that's a t-shirt design you create for what you're doing, and you help people listen, or you said you didn't say listen, you said trust,
obey, and move forward. Yeah, and that the move forward part when you talk to grievers is very upsetting. It can strike wrong when somebody's grieving, because move forward gets construed to move on, get over
forget
it,
him, forget about it,
forget
about it,
forget about it, and move on. Like I had a post on Facebook the other day, and people were outraged because I said move forward, and people are like, "Well, you've never lost a child, or how you're young, how you've not experienced anything," like, and
you're like, I've experienced more than all of you combined.
Yeah, I'm like, talk to me. I think I said that. Like,
Hopefully.
come on.
Tactically.
Yeah, that's hard for me sometimes. But I was like, as a matter of fact, like you should have looked through my stuff before you commented, is what I said. But people get upset, but like, just when you're talking about Moses, God wasn't asking him to forget. He wasn't asking him to get over your people are being like, this thing happened to your people, like, get over it. That's not what he said. He said go forward. Like, you gotta move.
There's a promised land. There's something waiting on you. You have to move. There's a miracle in front of you, and past the miracle, there's more. You have to keep moving.
Yeah, that's all it was. Like, people don't read in, like, don't make it something it's not. It's just moving forward. Like, just go forward, take the step, one step at a time. And I think that's the most beautiful way that we can honor God and we can honor our loved ones, is by moving forward and living a life of love and purpose and light. Like, because I promise you, if our loved ones could look down and see us, and we were, I always say, sitting in your poopy diaper, just like being a victim, like, would your loved one be proud of you and be like, oh, that's my girl? No. No, but if you were moving forward and you were honoring God and loving God and leading people to God and being light and being love, like, they would be like, that's my girl. What do you want to do?
So
obvious.
Good. That's so good. You obviously have a gentleness, but you have a strength and a gentle way you implore people to push through. Oftentimes we don't know how to do that. Again, I've said that as Christians in America. How do you grieve? How do you help people grieve in a way where I'm here, but I'm not enabling you to sit forever? So that's a tension. That's a tension that I'm assuming you're walking daily with people. How does that work for you? I don't even understand that.
Well, I use something called the grief recovery method. So the grief recovery method is an evidence-based program that walks people through healing and finding completion around grief. Not that it's not this like open box anymore. It's a closed box, and we can be feel good about what we did with the relationship and how we've handled things. And so it takes them through the really gross parts of their grief. I mean, and we have to go there. So when I talk about not sitting with people in their poopy diapers, like, there is a time that we do, because it's very important that we honor our feelings, which is anger, which is sadness and frustration and betrayal, and because we also deal with people who've had a lot of abuse. And a lot of hurt, like church hurt, and sometimes.
So
like,
you don't just deal with people who have gone through a loss of a loved one or something like that. You deal with people. People experience grief in so many different ways, right? Like, if you, as a guy, and I can only speak from what I experienced, but there's dreams that I've had to give up, and it was almost like grieving, because
for sure.
I was 100% in all the way through. All the way. Like, this is I could see the future. And then it failed. It just utterly failed. I failed. And I was literally, I didn't know at the time, but looking back, and through wise counsel, I was grieving the loss of a life that I thought I was achieving, the loss of who I was, because I was wrapping my life up in that, and my identity up in that, what I was doing. And it was it was in 2017. It was the toughest year of my life. I ran from God. I did not trust God. I just didn't want to. I didn't want the truth. I wanted to run away.
Mhm.
I knew the truth. I just didn't want it. I just wanted to run away from it. So I ran. I wasn't mad too much at God. I was more just like, I don't want to deal with you right now. Because I
Right.
know you're going to make me actually like, get through this. And right now I just want to like not. And I want to do what, I've never done. So
Mhm.
I was an idiot.
Yeah.
But God always, he can work everything for his good. I find that really interesting that you do work with people who have been through other things, not just
Oh, for
the
sure.
trauma of loss.
So, yeah, so we recognize like 40 different categories of loss.
Okay.
So you're like, oh my gosh, that's a lot. But you think about your big losses, like you lost a person. Okay. You physically lost a person, like they died. And then you have estrangements. So you lost somebody, but they're still alive. That one's tough. And then we have things like losing pets. That is another loss. And then you see people who have experienced all the kinds of abuses. You got a loss of trust, a loss of security, a loss of stability, a loss of a childhood. You can just go down. I see a lot of people with health issues. Like they have some kind of health issue. They're still alive. They're gonna live, but they don't get to live the way that they wanted to. So they're grieving this life that they're not going to get to have now because of their health issue. Moving. A lot of people talk about leaving a childhood home, and it was just a major grief for them. Losing jobs, divorces, change in relationship. Like maybe, I definitely experienced that before my husband died because he had a brain tumor. So he changed before we realized what was going on. And so I
Oh,
was
wow.
grieving this, like, yeah, it was the right part of his brain. So it affected his personality. And I was like, who is this person? And so you grieve the loss of a marriage maybe that you had. And I could go on, but those divorce is another big one. And people will come to me all the time and be like, "Well, I'm divorced, but that's not as bad as what you went through. You lost your husband." And I'm like, I don't know, because I've went through this a lot with people who've been divorced, and divorce is pretty terrible as well. And where a death is very final, divorce isn't, because that person's still alive and still in your life.
It's like there's a reason God doesn't like divorce.
Oh, yeah, like
It's not just because he wants to control people.
Right, no, it's painful, and it's
Yeah.
haunting almost for the rest of your life, and so, yeah, there's lots of reasons, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's all considered loss, and what I've found, so you've seen this too. You have, like, let's say you have two women. One of them lost her husband and seems to do okay and move forward and cope well. There's another woman who loses her husband, and she basically loses her life too. It's over. She can't get out of bed. She can't do her job. She can't function in relationships. So once I dig into these relationships, these people and their loss history, I see that the woman, a lot of times, it's doing pretty okay, has probably not had a lot of losses in her life, or she's had a lot of losses and she's dealt with them as they come along. Like she's been to therapy, or she's had good support from her family. And so this one big one happens and she's like, okay, I can handle this. Like I'll get the help I need. And I have proof that I can work with it. The other woman who's not doing okay has a lot of loss, a lot that she's never dealt with. And this is the straw that breaks the camel's back. And so she was like, okay, so I was abused when I was little. I was neglected. Then I had this bad breakup, and then I had this abusive husband. And then, maybe I lost my relationship with one of my kids, and then my husband dies. And it's like, I can't do this anymore. And I give up. That's where I see a lot of problems. But it is very seldom, and it's so sad. A lot of women, most of the women that I work with, have experienced sexual abuse. Almost all of them. And so then that's part of this loss. And then a lot of times you see, if you're a mother that's listening, you hear like, I told my mom and she didn't believe me, so nothing happened. Or I told my mom and she blamed me. Or I told my mom and she kicked me out of the house because it was my fault. Like you see this stuff happening. And so what I do is we start at the beginning and we start putting feelings and emotions with all this stuff. And I acknowledge that it was really terrible that happened. And, I let them talk to me and I listen to their emotions, and we put emotions and words to it and start to kind of get an understanding of what your loss history looks like. That was a really long answer to your question, but I walk them through it. I walk them through the whole thing.
It's a good answer. So it's kind of one of my last questions, I believe, at least. How do you know when someone's ready to fly on their own, for lack of a better word? Like when you're like, all right, like our time of me helping walk with you, it's time for you to continue this journey with a lot less support from myself. How do you do that? Because again, it's easy to become a go-to person, and then you're stuck. And with that, I know you're not it's not your person. And if it was, your marriage or something, you're gonna be there for life. But when it comes to these people, how do you like help the listeners see? Some of the listeners, I'm assuming, are gonna be people that are actually helping people, and they might want to journey a little bit or dive into that, and some of them are going to be needing it, but they also need to know, hey, there's a moment where I have to move on or move forward without all the assistance that I might need at the beginning.
So I think I truly believe that most of us know exactly what we need to be doing. Like, we know that. You know that you need to be, okay, for example, just generalizing this. We know that we need to eat healthy and we need to keep our bodies active and we need to have a job that provides for our families, like at minimum. We know that. Okay. But then how many of us actually do it? How many of us are getting up and working out in the mornings and fixing ourselves a high protein meal and heading out for the day?
I love that you said high protein. Thank you.
So, like, how many people are doing that? So I think that it comes when they know exactly what to do. I've given them the tools, and then they have the willpower to keep applying them. But I think another really important part, because you asked about people who are supporting them. So what a griever needs is somebody to lovingly listen to them without giving them solutions or trying to fix them. If you have somebody that is hurting, there is nothing you're going to say that's going to make them feel better. And who do you think you are to think that you are going to have these special words that are going to solve the problem for them, right?
So good.
Their husband died.
Good, JoBeth.
Their kid died. Like, don't be like, well, you can have other kids, or there's plenty of fish in the sea, or you're young, you'll find somebody. Like, cue all the things that people say that they're really hurtful when somebody just lost somebody. Because people would tell me, like, oh, you're going to find somebody. I was like, no doubt. Like, of course I'm going to find somebody. I'm 32. Like, I know I'm going to find somebody. Like, I'm not living in a cave. So I wasn't like worried about that, but didn't bring my husband back. So just lovingly listen.
Real quick, just to talk about that. Like, I like to take the logic and just walk through the logic of that. You're 32. Your husband just passed away. People are saying you're going to find someone. You're like, logically, what is that? What question is that answering? Is your biggest concern that you're not going to have a life partner right now? Or
right, no.
What is your biggest concern whenever you lose your husband? When you lose, is your biggest concern that you can have more kids? Like, what are we talking about? No, like, why are we even like, it's so surface level. And again, people, I know people mean the best when they're saying these things. In the midst of me going through my grieving process, I had a friend that we used to connect in college. Well, profound. She's a profound thinker as well. Very intellectual. And I got the opportunity to hang out with her at this like wedding at this weekend in LA. It was a whole fun thing. But anyway, she used to always give all this advice. So I was like, I don't know what to do. And she goes, I don't either. And I was like, what do you mean? She goes, I learned I don't know. I'm not God. I don't know. If I tell you to do something, it could go good or bad because I'm not God. If I give you advice, I'm not sure at this moment I know what's right or wrong. But she's like, but I think that you probably do, and you need to kind of work through it. And that's the only thing I have. But I'm not going to tell you and it was so freeing to hear that. And and that changed how I really work with people who are going through sometimes the smallest stuff, a breakup. Like, I deal with students. A breakup, these 17-year-old breakups. Okay,
they're devastating,
they can be devastating. But they're like, "What should I do?" I'm like, "I don't know. Like, what do you want to do?" Like, I'm not sure. I'm not God. I will support you in your decision, and I will give you biblical counsel around your decision. But I don't know what's the best option. There might be times where you're like, "Yeah, that's abusive. Get out." But most of the time, it's just like, you can choose one or the other. I don't know.
Right.
And so it's really, I lean into that so much more, where it's like, I don't know. And that's why I think that sitting Shiva, we mentioned it early on in the episode, sitting Shiva is so key. You just sit there. You're just there. There's no advice. Hey, There's no advice. Maybe they want to listen to a song. Great. Maybe they just want to watch Dirty Dancing over and over and over.
Right.
Whatever. What are we doing here? Like, I'm just going to sit. I'm going to be with you, because that's more important than, hey, here you go. Here's this, thing I've heard some people say a bunch of times that doesn't mean anything. It has no weight to it. So sorry, I interrupt you. Keep moving.
No, you're good. No, and I think that that's just something that if you are like, you're listening and you're like, I have somebody or I have people. I mean, a lot of times as Christians, like, you're kind of the go-to maybe in your community or your family. And like, you know that you need to show up, but you don't know how to show up. And I think how close you are to the person matters too. You're going to show up differently. So if it's like just a church member, you may not just want to go sit with them, because when I was in my darkest days, I wanted to be alone, and not to the point of like isolating and it being a problem, but like, I needed quiet. I had kids. So it was like, I was never alone anyways. And so I really cherished being alone. I didn't want to have to sit with somebody and think I had to entertain them. But that's a cultural thing, right? Because if somebody comes to our house, we were supposed to entertain them. So with the culture you're talking about, like, everybody understands that we're just sitting here. Where if in our culture, it's like, oh my gosh, I need to clean the house or get something to eat, or I need to put some different clothes on, or I need to act like I've not been crying, because then they're going to feel sorry for me. So if you're close to the person, the best thing you can do is just sit with them. And I had a friend who went through something really tragic, and she told me the story of it several times. She just needed to keep telling the story. Some of us are not strong enough to hear the story, but if you are, it's a beautiful thing to just sit and listen and be like, validate feelings. I can't imagine what that must feel like for you. Gosh, like, of course you felt scared. Of course you feel hurt. That makes total sense. Like, gosh, I'm so sorry that you've had to experience this. Is there anything else you want to share that's, on your heart? I'm not giving advice. I'm not trying to comfort you. I'm just listening and validating. And that's all you need to do. And then if they are somebody that you can hug, hugs are good. Always good. If it's something that they're ready for. If you're like some random guy from high school and you want to hug me at the bank because you just found out, like, don't touch me, But if you're somebody from like church or you're a friend, like, it's okay to just love and give that big ol' hug at the end. Also, not interrupting is another thing that you need to not do. That's something that we do a lot, is interrupt. And it's just because we're in the conversation. Oh my gosh, did this happen to, like, what about, we interrupt with a question, but we break that person's process of expressing themselves and grieving and telling the story. So be quiet, validate feelings at the end, hug them, show them love, like, at the end, but make sure they're done.
So good. Everybody listening, please take notes on that. That's noteworthy at that right there. For you will have the opportunity to help people in a grieving moment. And you might not be a professional or educated around it, but you can sit and listen and not interrupt and validate feelings. Those are things that you can do. I love that so much. One more thing that I think it's more of a little bit, and I want you to speak to this and then tell people a little bit about how they can get a hold of you and whatnot. In the Bible, there's a story where a woman, I believe this young girl, dies, and Jesus comes in the house, and there people are mourning, and he kicks them out, and he's like, get out of the house. They're professional mourners. Like, they literally hired mourners. There was people in that time frame in Second Temple Judaism in Jesus' time that they would, when you would lose someone, you could essentially pay them. They would come in and they would mourn with you your loss, and they were professional mourners. And I want to do my best to let you know, if you're in a grieving moment, if you think you're in a grieving moment, it is okay to bring in professional help. You don't have to be so strong that you can do it on your own. You don't have to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps and all of the typical American, let's get this by myself, I have no help. it is actually something that's been going on. This isn't a new fad. This is something that's been going on from probably the dawn of creation, is the idea that people are here to help you mourn. And sometimes you have to outsource that from just your friends and family to someone who's a little bit more professional. This is what they do. So can you speak to that a little bit, JoBeth, and then let people know where they can find you?
Yeah. So I would definitely am that person that's very strong and strong-willed. And somebody made the comment to me. I have a farm and a cattle farm. And somebody made the comment that I wouldn't be able to do it by myself. And I looked them dead in the eye and was like, "What?" That's my personality. I also understood that I couldn't do it alone, because nobody does it alone when it comes to farming. And it's the same way with like grief. Like, you want to do something and do it well, you hire somebody to help you. Like, look at your best athletes, look at your best speakers, look at your best anything. They had a coach. They had somebody that was like, "You want to get to the top? Take my hand. Like, let's go." And so I think if you want to do something well, you do pull in help. There's no way. It expedites things. And it allows you to lean on a professional instead of your family. Most likely your family is not equipped to deal with what you're going through. And two, like, you put a lot of the emotional weight on your family and you're too close to them. They carry that after the conversation. I'm not saying you shouldn't talk to them, but I think it really helps to have a professional, and people can have their thoughts about your decisions. But I like to say that people's opinions are none of your business. So if you do what's best for you, and if you need help, which you probably do, get it, and don't worry about what other people are going to think about it. This is about you.
Yeah.
And if somebody, you're like, "I need help," you're not alone. I had help 6 months before my husband passed, and 6 months after. I had a coach that I worked with every week. And so if you want that, I love talking to people. My Calendly link is available. You can reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, or my website, NWA Grief Specialist with an S, and just book a time to talk and be like, "Okay, this is what I got." I might not be for you. I might not be for a lot of people, but I can at least be like, this kind of help you within 30 minutes, be like, "This might be a good option for you. Maybe you need to go this way." But the cool thing about booking a call is that you are taking a step forward, even if it's not with me. I could care less if it's with me. If you want to work with me, it's amazing. But you got to take your first step, and that's what I'm most concerned about when it comes to people's well-being.
Awesome. And all those links will be in the show notes for those, her Calendly as well as her websites. So, JoBeth, any parting thoughts?
No, I just thankful for this opportunity, and I'm thankful for you giving Christians a place to talk and share. And we all have individual experiences, and we all have individual perspectives on it. And I think it's a really cool platform that you've put together, and I just want to thank you for letting me be a part of it.
It's been my pleasure, to quote the great Chick-fil-A employees. I'm joking, but no, it really has been my pleasure, and I'm so excited to be able to have a platform to put someone like you on, who's able to actually speak to grief and grieving well, and have a biblical foundation within that, and understanding that your strength comes from God. You're never turning away from God. Like, some of the most profound moments I think you said were, it's not a choice. It's not a choice. I only have one choice, and I'm not leaving God. I lost my husband. I'm not losing God too. I mean, I have all these quotes in my head. So thank you so much. I pray that the listeners also got so much from this, and we are going to be diving into the Beatitudes the next episode, so you're not going to want to miss that. And we start off, blessed are the poor in spirit, theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, they shall be comforted. And we have literally heard a story of a 32-year-old who was comforted when her husband passed away, went through infertility, who's been comforted, and now is a beacon of light. God uses her to help bring comfort to so many others. And so we're so thankful that people like you exist. JoBeth, thank you so much for what you're doing. I hope that people can connect with you as much as that God can bring your way, that you can handle, that need what you have to offer. because you have something to offer. And I would venture to say you should have a platform like this yourself, but that's just me talking. So I don't know if I'm not God. So again, I don't know. But we always end our episodes with a specific prayer. The Lord bless you, keep you prayer. So my co-host usually does it in Hebrew because he did 8 years of Messianic Jewish study. I don't know it in Hebrew, but I do know it in English. I'll say it in English, and we'll be done. So thank you again so much. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May he make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Amen. Shalom. Peace.
Thanks for embarking on this podcast journey with us at Hyperlink. Your support means the world to us as a listener-supported podcast. If you've enjoyed our episodes and would like to contribute, please consider visiting patreon.com/hyperlinkpodcast. Stay connected with us by joining our community on Facebook at Hyperlink, a podcast journey. If you have any questions or would like to book us for an event, please feel free to email us at hyperlinknigel@gmail.com. Thank you once again for tuning in and being a part of the Hyperlink Collective. See you on the next episode.